What is up, Packers fans? Welcome back to another edition of the Packers Tiers, the Packer People Top 300 checklist. Today, we're going to be checking off interior defensive linemen, a position that has been heavily talked about leading up into this year's draft class, and rightfully so, a super deep class. I'm your host, Jacob Morley. I'm going to walk you through some of this stuff. Before we get started, guys, make sure you're buying the draft guide. If you're listening to this, that's where all this information is coming from. We look at tiers, we look at different types of athletes that the Packers traditionally and historically have liked to draft. It is not the be all end all, but it is a really good guide to kind of steer you in the direction of what Brian Gutekunst might be looking for on draft day. If you're interested in that, there is a link in the bio. Andy usually does a good job of tweeting out that link as well. You can also find that on my Twitter page at Jacob Morley. Find it at Ross Uglum's Twitter page, Jacob Westendorf, all those guys. Easy to find if you're looking for it, or just shoot me a DM if you want the link. I'll get it for you. Make sure I get you in the right spot. And appreciate the heck out of all the people that have already purchased it and all the kind words that everyone has said so far about that guide. It is a lot of work. So it is nice to get that feedback and especially that positive feedback. And again, today we're talking about interior defensive linemen. So let's jump in to that right away. What does Green Bay typically like at the interior defensive line spot? You know, for some of these positions, it's really cut and dry. It's really easy to tell what they traditionally have liked at the position. And I'll be honest, interior defensive line, there are some weird things that they've done. It's harder to try kind of draw conclusions about exactly what they like. And like an example of that, Carl Brooks was not a great athlete. I think Carl Brooks was like below 5 RAS, didn't have the big time jumps that they typically like. Colby Wooden hit every box except he was light. 270-pound interior defensive lineman. So that's interesting. Both those guys are sub-package rushers too. So maybe the rules are different on that stuff. Devontae Wyatt was tier 1. He hit everything that they typically like. We're looking for a specific size. They don't really like the real short guys. They don't like the real light guys typically either, especially if you're going to be like an every down, 3 down interior defensive lineman type player. And then the thing that does stand out with all of these guys is jumps. You look at TJ Slayton, not a great athlete, didn't score out of this world as far as like his RAS score or anything like that, but he was a big guy that could jump. Big men, big jumps. That's what they look for. Kenny Clark, same way. Big time jumps from Kenny Clark. BJ Raji, go way back to Ted, top 10 draft pick. Didn't go look at his RAS score. I think a lot of people forget he did not have a great one, but he did have big time jumps. So that's kind of what we're looking for with this year's class and past classes. Just to give you some context about how deep this year's class is too. In 2023, there were 2 tier 1 perfect fits. Checked every single box. Those 2 guys were Keanu Benton and Garvin Dexter. Also been really good players too. So maybe the Packers are onto something here. That was the Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks draft. They were not tier 1 guys. They were high fits, but they had some outliers. 2024, one guy checked every single box. And again, with testing, we don't have the testing numbers for every single guy. It's unfortunate. Some of these guys just you can't be a tier 1 perfect fit if we don't know what your broad jump was. All right. So that guy was Chris Jenkins last year. Big time fit. The mutant, as they called him, coming out of Michigan. This year, 10. There are 10 guys that check every single box for Green Bay. And in this year's draft class, if you stack up all the tier 1 players and you stack it against our board where they're ranked within the guide, one of the biggest matches for Green Bay is the first guy that I'm going to talk about, and that's Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. I don't think it's any secret that he is on most people's short list for pick 23. He checks every single box. There has been some discussion because he doesn't have a crazy RAS score. He's got a 7.12. That's not great. It's not terrible. You're a 71st percentile athlete. I do think they have a little bit different standards if you are more of a nose tackle, which Kenny Grant is. Like Kenny Clark was more of a nose. TJ Slayton was more of a nose. If you run Kenneth Clark, or goodness gracious, too many Kennys, Kenneth Grant through Kent Platty's RAS, you know, filter, and he has a nose tackle filter now, and that brings Grant up into the eights for his RAS. So I think he's someone that they're really going to consider at 23. Would not be shocked in the slightest if he is the pick at pick 23. Other guys that have been talked about a lot: Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, Tyleek Williams, all top 50, yeah, top 50-ish players for us. We're missing things for them. We didn't get jumps from them. So they very well could be interested in those guys too. In fact, I would imagine they are, but we don't have access to their jumps. So they can't be tier ones. They could be the pick though. So getting into Kenneth Grant, I'm not going to talk a ton about him because he is someone that if you're watching this, I mean, these first round guys, I feel like we know what their second cousin's middle name is because we just know so much about all of them. I'm not going to get into talking about him a ton. I want to talk about two middle of the round types. And shout out to, I think someone in the comments on the cornerback episode said, I like the episode. I wish we would have done more corners. Buy the guide, buy the draft guide. I'm not going to give you every single one. All right. If you want the guide, you're gonna have to get that and see all that stuff because I got to pay the bills too. So, getting into these mid-round guys, the first one, Zeke Biggers out of Georgia Tech. The first thing that jumps out about him is how big this man is. I mean, he is every bit of 6'6" and a half, 320 pounds. He's got 35-inch arms. I mean, he looks he looks like a like premier left tackle. Like that's how his build is. He's very, very well put together. Um, Big time athlete, 9.7 RAS score, 97 percentile vertical jump, 84 percentile broad jump. 22 years old, top 200 player for us in our guide. So, really sitting there on that early day three, he's someone that I think they may very well target. When you look at him, I already talked about the size, the imposing figure that he is. He's a run stopper. That's what he does. You put him in the game to stop the run. He's really good at it. He's the type of player that is able to disengage and make tackles. He anchors against double teams extremely well. He clogs gaps, maintains gap integrity, all that stuff. Everything you'd want from a run stopping defensive tackle. You might be thinking, well, why is he not being talked about more? He sounds awesome. He's not much of a pass rusher yet, like at all. In his 4 years at Georgia Tech, I think he had 2 sacks. Wasn't really asked to get after the quarterback that much, but he doesn't. It's not something that's developed in his game. You look at his athleticism though, and you say, man, could it be? Like, is that something that you get the right coach with him? Could he be someone that you absolutely just steal in round 4? He could be. Maybe guys like him don't just grow on trees. He's got a lot of tools that NFL teams are going to like. Like that. That's just the truth of the matter. And I promise Green Bay is going to like this guy too. So sitting there in middle rounds, he might be a player that they double up on too. Like let's say they get after a Walter Nolan in round 1, someone that's a little bit more of that penetrating style defensive tackle. Maybe they go after a guy that is more of a run stopper. Maybe they're just trying to get away from that altogether. Maybe they don't even care. Maybe they don't want this body type. I don't know. I think they do, but just letting TJ Slayton walk, I think there's something to be said about that and something to maybe glean from that. But I don't know. So Zeke Biggers, Georgia Tech, first guy. The second one, I think this guy is maybe the most interesting player in this year's draft class. His bio is phenomenal. Big Ten guy. Wisconsin people are going to know who he is. Wisconsin recruited the crap out of him. Ultimately lost out to Nebraska. His name is Nash Hutmaker. I mean, he's a football player. His first last name literally starts with Hut. So he's a defensive tackle prospect. The thing that's really interesting about him is his background. These interior defensive linemen guys, wrestlers are always, it's always brought up. I mean, understanding leverage, understanding how to use someone else's body against them. That is all from a wrestling background. And he was not just any old wrestler. This kid from South Dakota in high school, 166 and 0. Oh, that's insane in 4 years. His final 73 opponents he wrestled against in high school, he pinned. 4-time heavyweight state champion out of South Dakota. Big deal as far as wrestling goes, but he chose to play football instead. But the really interesting part about him as well, he dropped 40 pounds. He got down to like 285, which he's still not carrying a ton of that weight. I think maybe he's getting back up to it, but dropped to 285 after his senior year of college and just decided, hey, I'm going to wrestle again. I mean, that's insane. And not only wrestle again, but he was 7-8 and he took 6th place in the Big Ten championships. And you might be thinking, well, he lost more than he won. Yeah, after being out of it for 4 years, now going up against other grown men that have been honing in on their craft since, out of high school. I mean, that's the fact that he was able to hold his own against legitimate Division I wrestlers after playing football for 4 years and not wrestling is insane to me. That's the level of athlete that he is. And he, let's see what he did. What was his RAS score? I got it in front of me. So he was a 7.3, so 74th percentile athlete, 66 vert, but a big time broad, 85 percentile broad jump. Measured in at 312, so he's got some of that weight back on. When you watch him, he's a lower ranked guy. He's probably around 6'7", maybe UDFA type, but he is the type of player that I think you want to get into your program. And I think Green Bay is going to be super interested in him. His physicality and his strength, it's good. It really is. He's your typical run defender, space eater. Played 0 tech, played 2 tech, played a bunch of different stuff, all for the Cornhuskers. You watch him; he's got one speed. He's got one speed. He's got one level of effort, and that is everything he's got in the tank. And that's fun. That's fun to watch him. Pad level's good, all that stuff. And again, you might be saying again, why is he not a higher draft pick then? Well, again, he doesn't have a ton of juice as far as pass rush. He's someone that if you're going to get him, you're buying in on him because he's going to stop the run. You're going to hope that he can get. I mean, for him, 40 pressures and 4 sacks in a season would be phenomenal. Like that would be very useful for him. And at the point where you're going to be getting him, that's what you want. He's going to be a guy that's going to be able to raise the floor of that room. I would not count him out. I wouldn't be shocked if 3 years from now either he turns himself into a player that it really outplays his draft position. So there's 3 guys for you today. I gave you more because there were 10. So there's still 7 guys out there that we didn't even talk about that are tier 1 perfect fits. Check across the board. So make sure you are buying the draft guide. Go to the Packer People Top 300 checklist and see what 7 I didn't talk about. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But until then, be excellent to each other and go Pack Go.